Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Online with the CMC, still searching databases and search tools for subject headings. Barb Scoby and Mary Cornell are both CMC catalogers, and they will be presenting this morning. So take it away.
All right, good morning, and thank you for coming to our presentation. Mary and I will take you through some of our searching adventures. So here we go.
Okay, and our agenda today includes telling you a bit about who we are. Then we'll briefly touch on what subject headings are. Next, we'll talk about different databases you can use to search for Library of Congress subject headings. Then we'll look at some alternate vocabularies you can use for subject headings, where to find those, and how to search them. We'll finish up with our resources.
So I'm Barb Scoby. I have been with the CMC at IHLS since December 6th of 2021. Previously, I was the county cataloger for Pinal County in Arizona. Also on December 6th of 2021, I closed on my house here in Illinois. So it was a busy day. In 2024, I decided to plant a garden at my new house and soon discovered that the previous owners of the house had put down a layer of rock and then a layer of dirt over the entire property. Why? This summer, I realized that, well, some of these rocks are actually cool. And that was the start of my dig sites throughout the property. Yeah, these are some of the cool rocks that I found. I'm not the best at searching for subject headings, and I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes and waste time looking for the perfect subject heading. Improving my search skills is the reason why I jumped on board when Mary suggested this as a presentation topic. And I've actually learned some tricks while doing research for the presentation, and maybe I can learn some more tricks from you.
Hello, my name is Mary Cornell, and I am a CMC cataloger here at the Cataloging Maintenance Center. I have been with the CMC for 4 years, and before working here, I was a cataloger at a vendor, a technical services supervisor at a public library, and worked as an aide or assistant in technical services and public and academic libraries. Outside of professional work, I am a cat mom to 2 tuxedo cats, Merlin and Schroeder, dabble in amateur photography and writing, go for nature walks, watch loads of movies, and love to travel. The photos above are some examples. Sunset photography over the Atlantic Ocean, Schroeder and Merlin cuddling, and on the right we have the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum in Glasgow, Scotland from my travels.
All right. So why are subject headings useful to catalogers and searchers? Let's say that I'm cataloging a book about a specific type of furniture. I call this object a couch. Others call it a sofa. And my relatives in Iowa call it a Davenport. If I didn't know about controlled vocabularies or the databases that contain these vocabularies, like Library of Congress subject headings, mesh, homosaurus, etc., I would probably put the word couch in the 650 field and be done with it and move on. That'd be cool, right? Well, this could be problematic. Why? Suppose a sofa or a Davenport person were searching the catalog. They'll figure out eventually that they should search by couch, right? In this case, they probably would because it's a pretty easy term, but not all concepts are so straightforward. I'll show you an example of more complex concepts, tongue twister, in a few slides. Okay, next. Okay. So if I, as the cataloger, had consulted a controlled vocabulary, in this case, Library of Congress subject headings, I would have discovered that the term sofas is the preferred term, and that the other terms I named are cross-referenced with this term. Plus the term divans, I had forgotten about that one, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Okay. So my go-to database to search for subject headings is the LCSH, and I access it through OCLC Connection. Before I show you my example, I want to point out that while using the various databases does make the job of assigning subject headings much easier, these databases aren't capable of knowing exactly what you're looking for because they can't read your mind. I truly hope that never becomes a thing. Any comment on that, Eric? So you need to be careful in your searches. The difference between your results when you type in a word versus when you add an S or a wildcard like the asterisk to the end of the word is apparent in the examples on this slide. So you can see, what couches and couch asterisk will give you the good stuff, but just couch, yeah, none of those are going to be useful. And same for sofas and davenports. So to search in connection, click on the authorities tab and then search and then click on LC names and subjects. Now there are 22 different types of searches that can be used. If you click the down arrows beside it, you can get up the menu of, of more of them. The searches I use most often are the 5 you see in the screenshot. LCSH, LC names, personal names, keyword, and subdivision headings. Now I have another caution when searching tidbit to relay to you. Doing a keyword search using a simple word like couch will give you hundreds, sometimes even thousands of results, and most of the results aren't helpful. If you have more than 100 search results, you will get a pop-up box, as shown in the slide, that shows the total number of results and instructs you how to view all results. To view the next 100, select next 100 records. I did stumble on a shortcut for viewing results. If you press the down arrow, it will scroll through the results, but it requires a delicate touch because sometimes when you're jamming on down the list with the down arrow, it'll zip you right back to the beginning. All right. I cataloged A Vagabond Life, a memoir of Father Hunger by Michael Byron Smith for the Council Library. From the book subtitle and the blurb on the back cover, I selected the following topics: lack of fatherly attention, families, despair, and despair resilience, and then impact on. The green box on the bottom right shows the subject headings that I ended up using. In the next slide, I will discuss my search and thought process when I selected some of these. Okay. So for lack of fatherly attention, Father Hunger, when I initially started cataloging this book, I was under the incorrect assumption that it was a memoir written by Father Hunger, a member of the clergy. Father Hunger is actually defined in psychology as the longing that a child may experience for their father who is emotionally, physically, or psychologically distant. So I chose to search only the word fathers in my first search. This slide doesn't include all the results. Absentee fathers was at the top of the list, and I thought, well, that sounds like a good match. But when I went into the authority record for absentee fathers and read the 680 scope note, I saw that this subject heading is used in relation to the physical custody of children, and I needed one that applied to the emotional absence of a father. With the exception of the father and child subject heading, the other headings in the search revealed nothing useful. And just as I was getting really frustrated, the word paternal popped into my head, and voila, I searched by the word paternal and found paternal deprivation. So for families, despair, resilience, I chose dysfunctional families. Just seemed to encompass everything that I needed to say. Impact on, I found myself going down the rabbit hole on this one. So I made myself stop and I settled for adding X children and X psychological aspects after paternal deprivation. I was looking for a heading that expressed effect on children or how it might impact their behavior and emotions as they become adults. I even checked the mesh headings to see if there was anything applicable there. And I'm still curious if there is that perfect subject heading out there. So let me know if you have any suggestions.
All right, so we're going to look at 2 different database options next from the Library of Congress. Our first database looks at a database available through the Library of Congress, their linked data service. With this database, you can search everything from the Library of Congress's collection, BibFrame instances, works, etc. You can utilize it as well to search for subject headings. As you can see in the list of scheme members at the bottom of the image, this includes not only topical headings, but also geographic headings, children's subdivisions, and more. Next, we're going to show you how to utilize this database by searching for a topic for a specific item's subject headings. So, as an FYI, not all of my examples will be items we've cataloged. This example is one we have cataloged, and it was cataloged for Mattoon Public Library. Our example is Casa de Cielo y Aliento, the Spanish translation of House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. We're going to pick out just a few subject headings that pertain to this item. The 4 subject headings we pulled from this are imaginary wars and battles, ethics, insurgency, fairies, and fairies, all with a subfield V of fiction. We're going to show our search process for the first 2 headings, imaginary wars and battles and ethics. So our first subject heading search for imaginary wars and battles gave us a few results. What I found most intriguing is we not only got the general heading for imaginary wars and battles, but we also got the heading for imaginary wars and battles -- fiction. This means we have a heading already created for the full heading we would need for our item. The 2 dashes between imaginary wars and battles and fiction means this is not only already an established heading, but we also have a heading already established with fiction as a form subdivision as well. So our second subject heading is ethics. After learning in our last search that I may be able to find ethics -- fiction by searching that way, I'm going to start by searching for ethics that way first. And as you can see, ethics -- fiction isn't an authorized subject heading. This doesn't mean it's unavailable to use, but let's just try searching ethics on our next slide. So by searching just ethics, we produce the subject heading ethics that is in our record. 2 takeaways from the search stand out. For one, there are a great number of authority records that populate when we search for ethics. So we will need to be careful when choosing a subject heading that populates these many results. When in doubt, read the scope note like Barb showed us, and then also check related terms and narrower terms. Second, I want to point out the left side of the screenshot that shows us the type section. For a search with these many results, we can narrow down what populates by choosing a type. Subject headings are authority records, and so I would choose that type, authority, to narrow our search results. Our next search tool may be one some of you are familiar with, the Library of Congress Authority Search. The Library of Congress has recently updated the interface of the search tool, so it might look a little bit different than you're used to. Much like the linked data service, you can search specifically for subject headings. We are going to use a different item to search for terms in this database on our next slide. So for our item, we're going to search using the book, The Making of the Magician by Jennifer Evergreen. We have numerous objects for subject headings for the item, but the few we picked out are Loki, subfield C, Norse deity, impersonation, mythology, Norse, and Norway, all with a subfield of V for fiction. So first, let's try searching for mythology, Norse, but search for it in a way that allows us to use more natural language. So instead, I'm going to search for Norse mythology. When I search Norse mythology, a couple of options pop up. Norse mythology listed as a Library of Congress children's and young adult subject heading, and Norse mythology listed as a reference, as we can see in the authorized reference section of our screenshot. Let's click on the heading that is listed as a reference and see what we find. When we click on the reference for Norse mythology, this takes us to the heading as it is properly authorized, mythology, Norse, and gives us a full view of the subject authority record. What we may notice when looking at the authority record is our search Norse mythology is in a 450 field, meaning it is a C reference in this record and why we were able to search for it as we did. We also can note that if we hadn't been sure that mythology, Norse is a subject heading, we could have also searched for mythology, Scandinavian, which is also a 450, and searching for it, we would have found this heading as well. For our second search, let's search for the subject heading Loki-Norse deity. What I noticed right off about this search, as we see in the authorized reference column, that neither of the values are filled in. We also don't have the option to click on any of the headings into the record. Let's try searching a different way on the next slide. So to search differently for this heading, we're going to change our search option to all headings. As we can see at the bottom of our screenshot, Loki Norse deity is authorized, but as a name authority heading. This is a recent change in headings where mythical figures and deities used to be categorized as subject headings. They are now created as name headings. They still can be used in a record as a subject, but instead of being in a 650 field, they will now be in a 600 field. Okay, so next we're going to look at some alternate terminologies. As I'm sure many of you are aware, there are numerous other terminologies a cataloger can use outside of the Library of Congress subject headings. These alternate terminologies can be especially helpful when the Library of Congress lacks a specific subject heading needed for an item. We have in our resources a link for a full list of alternate vocabularies that have been compiled by the Library of Congress, which includes the source codes for these vocabularies that can be used in bibliographic records. These include thesauri such as the Agricultural Thesauri and Glossary via the National Agricultural Library Thesaurus Concept Space, which is a database that includes multiple different vocabularies about agriculture. We have the European Thesaurus on International Relations and Area Studies, which is a multilingual resource covering all essential aspects in the field of international relations and area studies. TMBD, or the Movie Database, which is a community-built movie and TV database, kind of like IMDb for those of you that know. And then we have Maori subject headings thesaurus, which is a tool that provides a structured path to a Maori world view within library and archival cataloging and description. On the next few slides, we're going to look at some other alternate terminologies that you can use in your cataloging work. First, we're going to look at the American Folk Society's ethnographic thesaurus, which includes terminology that pertain to folklore, ethnomusicology, cultural anthropology, and related fields. These terms are available for searching in the Library of Congress's linked data service, and overall, there are 16,000 plus terms available for searching in this thesaurus. If you want to use the linked data service to search just this thesaurus, you can filter the scheme you're searching in along the left side of the database with other available filters. Our example we're going to use is a book by Xanth Gresham Knight, Goddesses and Heroines, Women of Myth and Legend. While this book could be categorized just using women and goddesses, there are different kinds of goddesses in this book as well. Firstly, AFSET, which is the American Folklore Society, does include goddesses as a term, but also includes mother goddesses, which applies to Isis, and healing gods, which applies to Isis and Brigid. The last term I found was fertility gods, which applies to the goddesses Mayuhel, Ocean, and Inanna, that could be useful as it would describe multiple deities in this work. We're going to search for fertility gods in AFSET. So when we bring up the linked data services, we'll find there's a drop down for the thesaurus that you can search. As you can see from our drop down, we can pick the American Folk Society's ethnographic thesaurus as the specific database we're searching. I searched this database using our term fertility gods and came up with the results shown on the bottom of the slide. As we can see by looking at the left side of the screenshot, we're just getting results from AFSET as we filtered. Our heading shows in the middle of the data set we searched the type of heading that this is classified as in the database, and then an identifier for the subject heading as well. Our next thesaurus may be one of the more familiar alternate terminologies, the homosaurus. The homosaurus is an international linked data vocabulary of LGBTQ+ terms. It was originally created in 1997 in the Netherlands and has morphed into the thesaurus that it is today through the work of different international groups by being transformed into an online linked data vocabulary in 2015. When using this thesaurus, there are two different ways to search. You can do a version 4 search as shown, or browse the version 4 vocabulary. The source we'll be looking at for using the homosaurus is ACE, what asexuality reveals about desire, society, and the meaning of sex by Angela Chen. There are a plethora of subject headings that can be found in the homosaurus that could describe this book, including the most important: asexuality, asexual people, and sexual identity, because the book isn't just about sex as the cover relays, but more about sexual and romantic attraction, which sexual identity speaks to. The LC record also mentions desire, but I feel the 3 subject headings I mentioned encapsulate most of the book's thesis. We're going to search for the term sexual identity in this database on the next slide. So I'm going to utilize the version 4 search through the Homosaurus's website to find our term. As you can see, I searched for sexual identity in the search box. A few things to note here start with, as you can see, the term sexual identity was not my first result. Instead, I found, looking through the Homosaurus, it was non-Euro-American gender and sexual identities. What I found through looking at the results in the Homosaurus is it pulls up terms based on keywords. If you can search for a term like identity, it will pull up any term that has that word in either the subject heading or the scope note. Sexual identity was our 7th result for this search and populated as shown on the slide. I would say if a search result like this is a bit daunting for you, utilizing the alphabetical version 4 terminology list instead is also an option.
Those were great examples, Mary, and I will definitely be checking out the databases you presented, especially the Library of Congress linked data service. I had no idea that existed, but it looks helpful. Okay, I'm going to briefly go over searching the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, or AAT. The search is straightforward, but I'm a little uncertain about how the headings are supposed to be entered in the record. I think I figured it out, kind of, but I'll share my confusion with all of you. So I cataloged this book for the Breeze Library in 2024. At that time, I only added the Library of Congress subject headings to the record. But when we started with this presentation, I thought that the story behind these paintings was interesting, and I thought it was a good book to apply AAT headings to. It's about a local artist, Jerome Schmidt, who painted under the name Adoni Chavez, and his family knew nothing about his art. And after he passed away, they found over 2,500 works of art. So this is a book of some of his artwork. Okay, sorry. So here I used the search term watercolor. I didn't add an S or an asterisk, and I didn't need to because the results that came up were pretty good. There were 9 results, and number 6 watercolorists and 9 watercolors paintings were what I needed. So clicking on watercolorists or watercolors paintings, it will show the preferred term first in the list of terms. And it also shows the ID number at the very top, as well as the page link. So I revisited the bib record for this book, and I noticed a field had been added to the record by OCLC. It's artist's materials, but if you look at it, there's a CSTMOGRI in parentheses before AAT. That's the International Standard Identifier for libraries and related organizations. I'm not sure why that was put there and why the heading wasn't formatted like the Getty website instructed, but which is just subfield 2 with AAT, and then subfield 0, and then the link, the page link that shows up in the record for the subject. Let's see. If you scroll down in the notes, you'll find info about OCLC system maintenance. I don't know if you care or whatever, but I just threw it on there. Okay, so I put in my AAT and my link, and things were going great. But when I clicked replace record, the 655 fields changed to 650. So once again, I was frustrated. But as a last resort, I decided to see what would happen if I removed the period at the end of the term. I guess the periods were causing the issue, maybe. The fields didn't change to 650 after I deleted the period, so I just stopped messing with them. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to mesh headings. I cataloged this book for the Warren County Public Library District. It is fiction, but is based on the author's experience growing up with a mother who was a hoarder. Okay, so the mesh browser defaults for searching are all fragments and all terms. The searches I did for this book were pretty straightforward, so I left those settings as they were. My first search was hoarding. The annotation said differentiate from hoarding disorder. I added the word disorder to my search and compared the scope note for both hoarding and hoarding disorder, and decided that hoarding disorder was the better fit. I had to do a bit of noodling around to find out what differentiate meant in this context. And it provides a definition or description of the concept itself, and it's about the application of the term. So I used hoarding disorder. And just so you know, oh, it's not on the slide, but the 650 that I put this heading in, the first indicator is the level of subject, and I just left it blank because I don't, hoarding wasn't like the primary focus of the material, but it wasn't the secondary. I don't know, I wasn't sure, so I left it blank. Okay. So this slide shows the 650 fields that I chose for the book. Obsessive compulsive disorder, which the search was similar to the hoarding disorder search. Autobiographical fiction, I got that from LCSH, but I thought that was a good heading to put in there since it's based on her life. And then mother-child relations, which is much, again, pretty straightforward search. Is this me? Okay, here's a list of all our resources. I think it goes 2 pages because there's just so much cool stuff out there.
It's true, it's true. All right, and on the call today, we have Barb Scoby, my lovely co-presenter, who is much more loquacious than me. Dr. Pam Thomas, Eric McKinney, Kat Anderberg, Katie Roberts, and Andrea Josta. Any questions?
We don't have any so far. I did put the link to the evaluation forms if you could fill that out, and you are now all able to unmute yourself if you are in an environment where you can talk without a lot of background noise. Okay, Juanita says, can you show the second page of links again?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And just an FYI for you as well, these slides with notes are up on L2 where you registered. So all these resources are available there as well.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that at the beginning because it's that kind of a day.
Okay.
Any other questions? Jean says, will you send out the links in email so that we can access them directly?
They are available in the PDF that you can download from L2. And I think if you are willing to play around with a PDF for 2 seconds, it is very much a copy paste where you can grab it from. One I can though send out in chat that I feel is the most useful out of everything that we have here. If I can find it real quick. Here we go. It's the subject headings and term code list, and it's not going to let me do it. Here, no, it's not going to let me do it. Anyways, as I said, it's going to be in the PDF, and you should be able to copy and paste it better than I can while presenting. Sorry.
And just as a reminder, next month, Kat Anderberg will be presenting. So you want to start a digitization project, and that is December 11th at 10 a.m. And also in January, I will be offering a subject analysis class from January 26th to February 22nd. That's a 6-week class. And I will put the link to L2 in the chat if you are interested in signing up for that. I basically cover Library of Congress subject headings, SEERS, and MESH. So just so you have a heads up about that.
So Kat's digitization is about the same as our thesaurus. Like, these words are hard to say.
Yes, they are. They are tongue twisters for sure.
Yeah.
any other questions, either about today's presentation or just general cataloging questions that you have for us? And if you fill out the evaluation form, we are always looking for future topics to be covering, and we'll be meeting in the spring to figure out what those are going to be for next fiscal year. So we always appreciate your topics that you suggest, because we want to cover things that you are interested in learning about. And the link to the evaluation form is in the L2 event as well. No more questions about subject headings or the databases that they covered? Or do you have any tips and tricks that you would like to share with us?
Please.
Yes. Or resources. And again, you should be able to unmute yourself if you would rather ask your question than type it in the chat. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to stop the recording and thank all of you for